I want to bring in now Washington Democratic Congressman Adam Smith. He will, of course, be in that briefing today as the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thank you for coming on. I want to start with today's briefing from administration officials. What is your biggest question going into it? Because I'm sure you have a few.
Yeah, what comes next, basically? How is Venezuela going to be run exactly? And crucially, how does that impact U.S. interests? And I think the other big question is what is Donald Trump's policy in the Western Hemisphere? Where does this go from here? Since this has happened, actually before it even happened, President Trump has threatened Colombia, he's threatened Cuba, he's threatened Greenland, he's threatened Panama, he's threatened Canada. So what exactly is the policy? It seems to be focused on Donald Trump's power. And basically, he wants to be sort of emperor of the Western Hemisphere. There's all kinds of legal problems with that. But let's assume that he is able to put forward this 21st century Monroe Doctrine. What's he trying to accomplish with it? How is this going to benefit the United States of America if we take on the responsibility of running the Western Hemisphere? And it seems like it's only focused on resource extraction. Is this going to improve the lives of people in Latin America? And if it doesn't, we're going to be in the middle of a massive conflict over a whole host of issues. So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered.
A lot of questions that I'm sure you will put to some of the very people who are now said to be, at least in some way, in charge of or running Venezuela, though certainly Secretary of State Marco Rubio tried to walk that back and say they're not involved in the day-to-day. It's more of a policy figurehead. But I think it comes as some senators, including Senator Chuck Schumer this morning on Morning Joe, said that he feels the administration lied to Congress. I want to play for you a piece of what he said. Watch.
I asked him in these private briefings, face to face, are you doing any planning for regime change? And they said they were not. They obviously were. They lied.
Now, I know that some of these briefings are classified, but you've likely been in some of the same rooms that Senator Schumer has been in. Do you feel lied to by this administration? Do you go about and can you confirm the way that Schumer is talking about asking directly, are you doing regime change in Venezuela, and being told no?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We were lied to. Now, it varied from member to member, from the Secretary of State to the Secretary of Defense to the president in terms of exactly what they said. But on more than one occasion, they did claim that they were not planning on regime change. So clearly that is true. They were not honest with us about what their plans were. But as I said, vastly more concerning is what is the overall plan going forward with this action? I think this is going to undermine U.S. security and stability in the region, and they don't seem to have a plan going forward. That is deeply concerning.
I take your point that it's deeply concerning and confusing to not know what the end game is here, but what's the consequence for lying? Because this is supposed to be Congress's, or one of Congress's, central functions of accountability and oversight. If the administration is going to come and brief you and lie about it, that's a problem, it sounds like.
Oh, absolutely. And let me take a step back. I mean, there's sort of really two big picture problems. Well, actually, there's dozens of big picture problems with the way the Trump administration is running things. I don't want to undersell that. But number one, they don't think that the law applies to them. They think they can do what they want, when they want, how they want, whether it's, lying to Congress, not informing Congress, sending troops into U.S. cities, slapping tariffs on people, using the Justice Department to persecute their adversaries, ignoring court rulings. And this is something I think the American people should be more concerned about than they are. Now, I know I've met with the consultants, I've had the conversations, focus on kitchen table issues, the cost of health care, the cost of housing, the economy. This is what people care about. And I agree. I mean, I think that's what people most immediately care about. But the rule of law in the United States of America is being utterly destroyed by Donald Trump in a way that it never has before. I mean, what Republicans do, I joke that every Republican apologist at this point has a PhD in whataboutism. Every time Trump does something, he's like, well, back in 1964, Lyndon Johnson did this that was kind of the same. No, the Trump administration has decided that the law doesn't apply to them. They can do what they want, when they want, where they want, without any accountability. That is undermining our constitutional republic in a fundamental way that I think people should be more concerned about than they are. And the second big picture thing is, when it comes to the Western Hemisphere, again, Trump is trying to exert this sort of this dominance, this power, and again, towards what end? Basically, it seems like what he wants is he wants his oil companies' buddies to make money. He doesn't care about the people of Venezuela. I mean, we've got the legitimate democratically elected president. We've also got Mrs. Machado, who's part of the opposition. He's like, nah, we don't need those people. Understand the plan here. Trump thinks that by grabbing Maduro, he has frightened the future Venezuelan regimes so that they will do what Trump wants. And what Trump wants is he wants them to open up access to oil. That's the plan here. This doesn't have anything to do with drugs or any of that other stuff. It's Trump wanting to exert dominance in the Western Hemisphere, A, for the sake of the power, and B, for the oil. Who can support that? And yes, Maduro's a terrible guy and drugs are a terrible thing. That's not what President Trump is trying to deal with here.
And I do think that we should point out that while you talk about that being effectively a pressure campaign against dictators and the remaining members of the Maduro regime in Venezuela, we have seen a tone change, for example, from Delcy Rodriguez, the one-time vice president, now the acting president in Venezuela, at first defiant over the weekend in the immediate hours after Maduro was taken, saying that he should be returned, and now saying that she wants to have cooperation and constructive conversation with the Trump administration after Trump threatened that she could have a fate worse than Maduro to the Atlantic over the weekend in a phone interview. So certainly that pressure campaign does seem to at some point be bearing fruit. But I think the question that I want to come back to with you is, what's the recourse then? If there's lying and if there's so much at stake here.
But I have to correct one thing you said there. This is not a pressure campaign against dictators. This is a pressure campaign against leaders in the Western Hemisphere who don't bow to Trump. That's an important distinction. I've seen no evidence whatsoever that President Trump cares whether you're a dictator or not. He cares whether or not you do what he wants you to do. And the recourse is very, very difficult. The biggest point here, Republicans in Congress have decided basically to completely abdicate their responsibility in Article 1 of the Constitution and basically turn the country over to Donald Trump. I mean, remember, Mike Johnson shut down the Congress for 2 months in the middle of a budget fight. So basically, the recourse would be for Congress to exercise oversight. But Mike Johnson and John Thune in the Senate refused to do it. They don't pledge allegiance to the Constitution. They pledge allegiance to Trump. And there is not any oversight. Now, we, on the Democratic side, have introduced a number of different bills. We pushed forward war powers resolutions that would have blocked this type of action without congressional approval. Republicans voted it down. Seth Moulton and I have a bill on appropriations that would cut off all funding for this type of military operation in Venezuela. We're going to push for a vote on that. But the Republicans in Congress are abdicating their responsibility. We Democrats are trying to put pressure on them every single day and everywhere we can. Okay, whatever the policy, don't you think that Congress should exist, should play a role? It's in the Constitution. Right now, the majority, just about every Republican in Congress is saying no. We're good just sitting back and letting Trump do whatever he wants to do, and then claiming that it's okay, again, because we can cite some example from 40 years ago where something similar happened.
Yeah, I do think it has been stunning the way that Congress and specifically congressional Republicans have been willing to cede congressional power and authority to the Trump administration on a number of different issues, seemingly uninterested in clawing it back. Though I do feel I have to ask, I was talking to Senator Tim Kaine just yesterday, who was saying that he wonders if some Republican votes on war powers related resolutions, including one of his that's going to come to the floor in the Senate later this week, he wonders if some Republicans might be moved by what they saw over the weekend, that some of them might have voted against similar resolutions like this because they felt that the administration hadn't yet done any of the actions to warrant being basically slapped on the wrist or told that they have to go through Congress for this. Do you get the same sense? Do you share that optimism?
Yeah, sorry, that last part is ridiculous. The idea that Trump hasn't done anything yet that would really give rise to us having concern.
That's what some Republicans were saying.
I understand. I'm not criticizing you. I just want to make sure that we're clear on that quote. The idea that, it's all just talk. No, it's not talk. It's happening over and over and over again, where the president ignores the law. I mean, we just heard today that Pete Hegseth is going to, bust Mark Kelly down in a rank for exercising his free speech as a United States senator. We got the whole Kennedy Center thing. We got the whole ridiculous Department of War thing, which is completely contrary to the law. We've got, ICE agents, raiding looting and violating people's constitutional rights all across the country. So it's absolutely happened. As far as Senator Kane's optimism that maybe this will be the thing that pushes some Republicans to do something different, maybe. I would bet against that based on what's been happening in the last year. But I think this is what we have to do. We have to keep putting pressure on Republicans, and we have to tie it back to the American interests. How does what we're doing in Venezuela advance our interests? I like the line, President Trump can't run this country. Now he thinks he's going to run Venezuela. All of the money and effort and expenses that we're putting into that failed operation, well, we don't do anything about health care. Healthcare costs are ballooning, no plan in place. Housing costs are out of control. Food costs are out of control. The president's tariffs go merrily on. Okay, so I think we have to keep that pressure up and keep putting as much pressure as possible to get the Republicans to do that. Am I optimistic about it? Not right now, but we got to keep it up.
But we are coming off an end of the year where some Republicans broke ranks to attempt to do something on Affordable Care Act subsidies. Obviously, it was too little too late. Those subsidies lapsed at the end of the year. But I do think you're right. As much as we've been focused on Venezuela, rightly so, there is so many other issues that are percolating on Capitol Hill as you and others make their way back. I am keenly interested, as I'm sure many of our viewers are, in the briefing that you are going to get later this evening from top Trump administration officials. And I hope that you'll come back and share with us and our viewers about what you've learned and hopefully some clarity on what the plan is going forward. Thank you, Congressman Adam Smith.